What do you feel are the most common concerns about using open source in enterprise environments? I know that's a big question.
There are many actually, so let me maybe mention two or three that usually comes to my mind whenever I discuss it at work or even off work. The first one is the fear of the unknown. Mm-hmm. Open source, even though that we would like to think here at while with OSCON, between our friends and colleagues, that everybody is aware of open source and very comfortable with it, but the fact is it's actually unknown to many. And I think open source has achieved great things in the last 10 years or maybe more, especially with operating system Linux and the database MySQL, and Java as a programming language. But there's still tons of things that need to be done, and a lot of people are just unfamiliar with it. The other challenge would be the stereotypes. There's a lot of things that are being said about open source that we know that are not necessarily true, or maybe true in specific cases, but not across the board. And I think this stereotypes as well is something that is considered to be a challenge. And the third point would be open source has been very popular at the vertical, the horizontal database as the infrastructure, programming language. I don't think it has achieved such a success when it comes to verticals. Let's say healthcare, for example. We've been trying, and there are great steps that has been done, but I don't think at the same success level as the infrastructure.
What are some of the strategies for taking on those concerns?
Well, it differs. So, for example, the fear of unknown, I would say that it's gradual patience education. You have to be patient. We have to be patient. We have to start introducing open source to the others. One of the things that I noticed, again, it's not happening everywhere, but there's always the case of this is an open source technical person, this is non-open source technical person. So it's either all or nothing. Either you're an open source guy or you're a commercial guy. I think we need to cross that bridge. I think we need to accept people that do commercial and they do also open source. And the people that do open source, they don't have to feel very quote-unquote religious about it. It's okay to do non-open source. You don't have to be ashamed to do .NET as well as of Java. I think this is something that we need to do, because no matter how we can try to grow organically, there will always be a limit that people cannot commit to open source 100%, and we need to encourage the people out there that do .NET, for example, to do also open source. I think this is one of the key parameters. The other point is also we've been sometimes concentrating on development, programming language, developers. A lot of the talks will always mention programming languages, and sometimes we forget the administrators, DBA administrator, application administrators. I think these people are key in any infrastructure, IT organization, that they can advocate open source in their environment. So if we try to bridge that gap by making the open source people try to learn non-open source, and they will be hired in organizations that might not have open source, but having this open source legacy with them, I think they will see a chance, will see an opportunity to introduce open source. I think we can open gates that haven't been opened yet.
Now, cost is often put forward as one of the great reasons why you should use open source solutions, but on the flip side to that, it's not necessarily free, right? I mean, there's support, there are different things that you end up paying for. It's not that the dollar figure is always zero. Do you feel that cost is the wrong thing to focus on when you're trying to make the case for it sometimes?
I would say it will be the wrong thing to focus only on. So if we only talked about cost, I think we're missing a lot of other opportunity, because I've seen it in my organization, I've seen it in other organizations where cost is not the first priority. Meeting the requirements of the end users is usually the first priority. I want something that works, I want something that is reliable, I want something that achieves the best result, I want something that is scalable. If we can meet these requirements, then cost comes next. If there are two products that are very equal and people are not, having a hard time deciding which one is better from a requirement point of view, then they go to cost.
Yeah.
The other point that also that I see when we mention the free word, the word free sometimes, or actually a lot of times, outside even of the open source, whenever somebody tells you, oh, there's something that is free, it brings to you immediately, where is the catch? There is nothing. Sure. Yeah, there's nothing called free.
And for good reason, right?
Exactly.
Right.
So I think we need to just balance it. We need to continue saying that this is definitely a cost saver, but definitely we want to mention the other advantages of open source maybe before we even get to cost.
Interesting. So last question for you. I know you've used open source options to improve the electronic medical record system at your hospital. Can you share a few of those efforts, how it's worked?
Right. So this is actually the main topic of my session tomorrow at 5 p.m. Thursday. But basically the idea was to try to introduce open source to the ecosystem that we have at the Children's Hospital as gradually as possible, because coming to an environment, not necessarily everybody is familiar and comfortable with the concept of open source. So what we've done, our commercial EMR allows the loosely coupled integration with other technology stacks through SOA or service-oriented architecture. So what we did is these technology stacks that are providing functionality to the AMR, some of those are open source. So we've chosen open source technology stack, let it be Apache, let it be JavaScript, XJS, to provide this extra functionality to the AMR, especially in the mobile domain. So in the mobile domain, since it's relatively new, we managed to build almost an exclusive open source technology stack. Yeah. Yes. Where we'll be able to, we didn't build native apps, we relied on web apps. It's based on HTML5, again, Sensor Touch, and other open source libraries to be able to provide cross-platform productivities or applications on different mobile devices to our employees and our physicians. And I think this was a good opportunity for us to concentrate on open source in the mobile and to prove to people that this is something that works, and here is the proof of concept, or the proof that you have been using it on mobile for some time now. Let's keep introducing it in other opportunities and other requirements.
Right. Well, thanks for joining us. Appreciate you taking the time.
Thank you.